The Expanse is one of the deepest and most awe-inspiring sci-fi series ever, and now it's also a brand new video game from some of the best storytellers in the gaming industry, Telltale Games. Let's take a look at The Expanse, a Telltale Series DLC trailer.
Military scholars have compared the game of empire building to chess for centuries. Sacrifice and adaptation are part of the game. When you have Mars, the Belt, and countless factions running lawless across the solar system, Earth needs someone in this new era of war who can play by the rules and knows to get their hands dirty when it matters. But now, with UNN leadership off-planet, you're telling me she is the most powerful woman on Earth. God help us all.
If only everything was as straightforward as chess. In politics, the rules are always changing.
And we're back. I'm joined here today by Deck 9 Game Director Frost and Cinematic Director Alistair Ebinger. Welcome to our humble little balcony.
There's nothing humble about this. This is nice. This is awesome.
It's nice to be above the hustle and bustle up here.
Yeah, I love it.
Let's talk The Expanse. First of all, why make a game set in the Expanse universe? What was the attraction there?
Well, The Expanse is one of the best sci-fi properties that's out there. I think when we watched the show, we were all big fans of it, and we've read the books. So when we had this opportunity that kind of popped up in front of us from Telltale coming to talk to us about making a game within this universe, we absolutely had to jump on it.
And then how did you land on deciding to make it a prequel?
Yeah, so there's a lot of characters in The Expanse, and most of them have these fleshed out huge backstories. And the drummer that we sort of were exploring, the character that we were exploring,
who's named Drummer, right?
Who is named Drummer, yeah, Kamina Drummer. She didn't have a backstory that was fleshed out in books or in the show. So we saw an opportunity here to not only bring in new fans for The Expanse, but also tell a story that people hadn't really heard yet.
It's so the show is based on a book series.
That's right.
Are you based on the show or the series or both?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's mostly about the show.
Okay.
However, we definitely took some inspiration from reading the books as well.
Interesting. Tell us about the that collaboration with Telltale. How did that come about?
Yeah, so we basically make Life is Strange games normally, and we had this opportunity to work within the narrative space. Telltale had been introduced to us. We had talked with them about the opportunity to work with them, and eventually we got The Expanse brought from them to kind of say, like, would this interest you? And there was a bunch of people on the dev team that were like, yes, do that. So we just started working with them.
Yeah, really excited. A lot of the members in the team are just so excited to actually have worked on this, and we're fans of the IP beforehand, and everyone's just poured their heart and souls into this project.
Yeah. What's that collaboration like on a day-to-day basis? Are you checking in with them day to day or like week to week?
So we check with them pretty much week to week.
Okay.
A lot of what we do is we supply builds monthly to them, so they would play through the game and they'd give us their thoughts. They would give us their perspective from making Telltale games, and something like a Life is Strange game versus a Telltale game has its differences, but it's in the same genre. So
Sure.
we would get notes and perspective and thoughts, and then also from Alcon, who created the show. So we get feedback from the writers of the books, we'd get feedback from the producers of the show, we get feedback from Telltale, and luckily we're all huge Expanse nerds, so that there wasn't really a lot of conflict there. It was kind of like, it could be also awesome, and it really wasn't any drama. It kind of just came pretty naturally. It was awesome.
Interesting. So I think people know what a Telltale game is, what to expect. This is sort of the first Telltale game in a while with the new Telltale. So I guess how familiar or not is this game going to feel?
I think that this is definitely a Telltale game through and through, right? You're going to play it. You're going to see the things like so-and-so remember that when things fire off.
Yep.
You're going to have a lot of really tough choices. I think that we took some inspiration from Life is Strange stuff as well, having these, big...
They kind of share the same narrative space, but it really does. It feels like a Telltale game. It is entrenched with hard choices and a fantastic story.
Yeah, I mean, really the core of it is the performances, the characters, and making those tough decisions. So, I mean, I think the perception so far, people that have played it, they're happy to see Telltale kind of make their return.
Sure, yeah. You mentioned the performances. Can you share some of the actors that you worked with?
Yeah, so we got to work with Carrot G, who plays drummer in the show. She's an exceptional actress, and takes her work very seriously, but is also hilarious and funny, and was awesome to work with. And we also got to work with the great Shory Agashlu, who plays Ava Sarala in the show, and both of those characters are some of my favorite characters. So getting to work with them was just a dream come true.
Yeah. The Expanse is filled with really strong, powerful women, and it's just nice to work on games with strong, powerful women. I think the industry needs more of that.
And then, Alistair, as the cinematic director, where did you land on your art style? Are you trying to balance between realism and sort of video game? I don't want to say cartoonish, but
Stylized.
Yeah, stylized. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit stylized. It feels similar to, I think, what a Telltale title would feel like, but it's a little bit edged more, I'd say slightly more towards realism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the characters, they all feel super, super good and similar to what you'd expect from those games.
Yeah, I think character focus really meant that when we were doing expressions on players' faces or players on characters' faces, really what we're looking for is to have responses where you don't need to give a verbal cue to understand how the character is feeling. So to do that, we needed to make sure that we had characters that had a realistic sort of a look to them, but also had the stylized sort of thing that you would expect from something like a Telltale game or a Life is Strange game or something like that.
Yeah. Were there any new game mechanics that you added that would be a little bit different from a Telltale game?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a 0G system in the game, so you're a scavenger out in deep space near Jupiter. You're looking through the combing through the remains of this ship that's been destroyed by pirates, and you're figuring out kind of what happened, and you get to talk with people while you're exploring. So there's a line of severed floating heads at one point you find that the pirates have left for you to encounter. And when you do that, you can explore, check it out, and then get contacts from the crew, and you can get their perspective. So you continue to play on the sticks, as we call it, story on the sticks. So you're still having fun floating, walking on walls with mag boots, but you're also getting to hear about things from characters that are on the ship or that are out in space with you floating around. So it's a lot of character building, even though you're still playing and floating around in 0G.
Are you expecting that most players that are going to be attracted to playing the game are going to be familiar with the universe, or do you also sort of consider people who aren't familiar with the Expanse?
I mean,
I think there's a lot in there where you don't have to play, or you don't have to have watched the show to be able to understand what's going on in the story in the game. It's totally playable on its own. It stands alone by itself. But I think you'll get a lot more out of it if you're familiar with the show as well. You'll see little nods that we do here and there to stuff.
The hat tips, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah, it is definitely a richer experience if you played it, but we made it a prequel on purpose. We wanted to make sure that fans that were coming in were excited, but also if you haven't seen it and you like Telltale games, this is still a welcoming experience for you.
So you're launching on July 27th. Episodic releases every 2 weeks. Was there a lot of discussion about what that cadence?
Oh, there was discussion. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think we talked a lot about this with Telltale, and this is a Telltale decision. They wanted to make sure that this is something that you had time in between the episodes to kind of have that water cooler talk and kind of say like, well, what did you do? How did you decide to move through the experience? I think there's something to be said about watching Last of Us on HBO or watching Game of Thrones or something, and then talking about that cliffhanger at the end or that crazy moment and having that with your friends, and then going back into it and doing it again for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree.
Also having those moments of realization that like, hey, wait a second, that didn't actually happen in my playthrough. Like, how did you get that outcome? Or like, how did that happen to that character with you? Like, what did you do to get there?
Right.
So that stuff we're really excited to see.
Very cool. You've got 5 episodes, and then there'll be some DLC coming after that. Any sort of hint you can give us as to what to expect with the DLC? Okay,
so we don't want to give away spoilers, but I will say this. This is a very important day in Christian Avasarala's life. She's one of the characters on the show. It is a life-changing day for her. And if you're a fan of the show, you may be able to surmise what that is. But even if you're not, the performance that Shory gives here is exceptional. There was somebody on the Telltale staff who, when we sent them the reels and stuff that we were working on, she's like, well, I'm crying. So I think success there. But yeah, it's basically you're going to have to operate with 3 major fields. One is what's going on in the belts in Mars and UN sort of politics, and lives are in the balance there on decisions that you're making. You're also having to deal with politicians that are trying to usurp your power in a lot of ways. So you got to deal with them. And then you have your own family drama that you have to deal with. So there's a lot going on for her, even though she's basically in a bunker hundreds of feet underground. There's a lot going on for her.
Very cool. Well, we're all excited to check out The Expanse. Thank you so much for coming by the IGN balcony out here.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for us, but episode 1 of The Expanse, a Telltale series, will be launching on July 27th on Epic Game Store, PlayStation, and Xbox. All the DLC will be dropping this fall.